All right, so you want to see a 4-door Nova converted to a 2-door Nova. Let's talk about it. Now, you've seen some Tri-5 Chevys and some other cars change from a 4-door to a 2-door, and the reason they're able to do that is because the roof line is the same on the 2 doors and the 4 doors on like the 55, 56, 57 Chevrolet. So all they have to do is move the door jamb back and get a 2-door door, and then that fits. Well, on the 4-door Novas, the door is a different shape right here. It's actually reverse. This door is curved in some like this. This door is curved out. So the doors are a different shape, and it's a taller door because the roof line is different. So the roof line is taller, the windshield is about 1.5 inches taller. Now the A-pillar is the same. From here to here, where the actual A-pillar stops, if you look at the welds and stuff, it's the same distance on the 2-door and 4-door. And I used to think this one was at a different angle, but it's not. It's the same angle as the 2-door, but when you get up here, this section is at a taller angle, but that's part of the roof section of the A-pillar, not part of the hinge pillar part of the A-pillar. I'm trying to do this without getting tongue twisted. So the door is taller and the roof is actually up higher, and that's to give people in the back seat more headroom. So this roof sits up 1 inch or 2 taller, and it's more of a bubble. So the roof skin is totally different. Also, your vent glass on a 2-door and 4-door, they are the same. Notice I said glass, not the whole window, because this section is actually taller. This section from here to here and there to there, the glass is actually the same. And if you'll notice, the gasket is actually much taller here than it is on a 2-door. Like right here. So I've measured the window. The window is the same size, the same angle, everything's the same except for this piece. So it may be, now the frame itself where it bolts in down here might be a little bit different, but you could probably take a 4-door vent window and cut it to fit and change the gasket out if you're putting a new gasket and stuff in it, or weather stripping, whatever you want to call it. So is it possible to change one into a 2-door? Yeah, you could do it. You could totally do that. I'll tell you what you would have to do it, and then we'll talk about whether or not it would be worth it. All right, so the things that are the same on the cars between the 2-door and the 4-door. The floor pan all the way back is the same. Now, the rockers are the same all the way back, except for it's got this hinge pillar stuck in it. Or I'm sorry, the B pillar stuck in it. And well, actually it's a hinge pillar for the back door, so you know, I'm not wrong. But it's got that in there. You'd have to remove that. The rockers are the same all the way back as far as I can tell. And then you've got your back door. All of this is different. So you'd have to cut this entire quarter panel out. Inner and outer quarter panel would have to come out. The wheel houses are the same, and I'm 90% sure that the package tray and the divider section are both the same. The trunk pan is all the same. Taillight panel's the same. Trunk drop-offs, all that stuff, everything pretty much connected to the floor pan and frame rails all the way across, it is the same. The difference is your outer quarter, your inner quarter, your roof structure, your B pillar is in the way, and then where this comes in, like I said, where this gets taller. So if you were to take and undo the factory joint here and then remove it from the rocker panel as far as the outer quarter, remove the quarter from the rocker panel, the inner jamb or inner quarter, whatever you want to call it, from the rocker panel, and then all of that, your inner sail panel and roof structure, if you removed all of that, you'd basically have what's left of a 2-door. Now the problem is that you would also need a 2-door donor car, and you'd have to have one in good enough shape to where you're going to be able to use all the stuff you need. Now this one's been cut in half because I didn't have a van for it, but you can still make this work if I decided to do it. I've still got the front half of this car. Now I would have to take the roof skin off. Roof skin would have to be replaced, but this one's junk anyway. I'd have to weld the inner structure of the roof back together, and I'd have to weld this part back together. The biggest problem is I would have to separate the inner quarters on both sides from the wheel houses and keep the door jambs and all that together, and I'd have to transfer them to the other car. Well, I'd have to do the same thing on the A-pillars. I'd have to separate the 2-door roof from the front half A-pillars that I've got and keep all that in good enough shape and be able to get it on the other car without tearing everything up. Now I know what some of you are thinking, just cut the A-pillars and weld the rest of it back together like it is. And yeah, you could do that too. I wouldn't prefer to do one that way. I'd rather have it done factory style, which is way more work, and I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if I'm going to attempt to try it or not. The two-door that I've got is not in great shape, and the quarter panels are junk. So even if I did this, I'm going to need a roof panel because the two-door roof that I've got is junk. The quarter panels are junk, so I'm going to need a roof and 2 quarters. So I'm going to need $1,500 worth of parts after I do all the other work. And you're talking about hours and hours and hours of labor to try to convert that 4-door into a 2-door. And let's be honest, at some point you're not converting a 4-door to a 2-door, you're just cutting a 4-door up and putting parts of the body onto a 2-door, or vice versa, but whatever. It's less about converting it. So it's not like the Tri-5 Chevys and some of the other cars that you've seen people convert from a 4-door to a 2-door. These cars have totally different roof lines and heights and all that stuff, so there's a lot of work involved in it. And this joint at the factory roof and all that stuff, that is not an easy joint to get apart. I'll show you a piece of one. All right, now this is a old A-pillar that I've cut out of an old parts car a long time ago, out of a 2-door, and you can see how the joints overlap each other. This was actually part of the roof structure, so is that, and then you have your A-pillar structure and all that. It goes down there pretty good ways. So you would have to get and the 4-door is done the same way as this. It's just this piece is longer. To get this apart, one side is going to get destroyed. If you're trying to keep the upper side, the lower half is going to get destroyed. All right, and then maybe both, but hopefully only the lower half. And the same thing with if you're trying to keep the bottom like you would on the 4-door, well then the upper half's going to get destroyed, which on the 4-door is not a big problem. That one's junk anyway. But that's a very complicated joint to try to get apart and put it back together and get everything right. So I know a lot of people are thinking you could just cut this and weld it back like that, and yeah, you could, but I really wouldn't want to do it that way. That's plenty of people do it. There's nothing wrong with it. I just wouldn't want to do it that way. And I've still got to take, even if I did that way and made that part easier than the other, or more possible, whatever you want to call it, I still would have to take the 2-door car and cut it off the wheel wells and everything, or really cut the wheel wells out with it, and then take the pieces of wheel well off of the quarter, the outer and inner wheelhouse off of that quarter, so that it could be done right. And then the outer wheelhouses on that one probably are rusted because the quarters are too. So yes, it's completely possible to change a 4-door into a 2-door. The problem is you don't need a door and move the B-pillar back like you do on some other cars. You need a whole 2-door car that's in good enough shape that you still want to use it. And then why wouldn't you just fix that car with the 4-door parts? So it's kind of a paradox. I'm not going to cut up a decent 2-door car to convert a 4-door to a 2-door. I would just fix the 2-door, because if the stuff on the bottom of the 4-door is good, the only reason that you would be cutting apart a 2-door car is because the bottom is junk and the top half is good. So then you just take the 2-door stuff or the 4-door stuff and put it all under the 4-door, not 2-door. So I'm getting all screwed up here. You take the bottom of the 4-door and put it on the 2-door, and then you're just repairing a 2-door. Again, it's kind of wishy-washy. You can do it. I just don't know why you would. If you have a 4-door and you want to convert it to a 2-door, you're going to have to buy a 2-door, and at that point just fix the 2-door. So while I may do that just for the novelty of it, I may or may not, but it's not looking good. It's really not looking good, because the 4-door that I've got is really rusty and in really bad shape. The 2-door that I've got is a donor car. It is really rusty and in really bad shape, and it doesn't have a VIN, so it's never going to be a 2-door. I would have a 4-door or 2-door if I did the conversion with a 4-door VIN, which is not a problem, but it's be a custom car, right? But probably never going to happen. Okay, so hopefully that answers some questions on converting a 4-door to a 2-door. You really wouldn't be converting anything. You'd just be butchering 2 cars, really, and it's just not worth it, in my opinion. And I've got other things I really need to be working on right now. So while that may be a possibility in the future, I seriously doubt it. Like I said, I've got Frank and Nova to get ready for Rocky Mountain Race Week. I've got the Budget Nova to get ready and get it sold, and then I've got tons of other stuff to do. I've got 9 other cars. Well, let's 1, 2, 3, 6 other, 7, 5. I got a bunch of Novas. I got a bunch of Novas to work on, and I've got a bunch of cars planned out how I'm going to build them in the styles. I've got the new natural disaster project. I've got a really rusty 72, worse than natural disaster probably, all over. Anyway, I've got a lot of cars to work on, and converting a 4-door to a 2-door, no time soon. So anyway, leave a comment, tell me what you think, tell me what you would do. Like the video if you do like it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll see you next time.